The basic message that, or your basic mission is something that I believe all families who engage in planning should really use as call it the grounding philosophy for any planning that they do. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, and it's really grounded in John A's. I mean, John A. When that's, as you can imagine, when I read Complete Family Wealth and reached out to the authors and they introduced me to Purposeful Planning Institute, it was like, I'm home. I'm home. Like, I thought I was a lone wolf wandering in the wilderness trying to make a difference to a few people, but to be surrounded by so many wonderful colleagues and professionals that are passionate about that. So I personally don't see what's so unique about me, because we have like 300 of them at every rendezvous that you could.
Well, I understand that, but having gone through the estate planning process with my dad and with myself, and then, and we're talking about using some pretty big firms, and sophisticated people. The concepts that you're talking about, John A's talking about, Jay Hughes is talking about, they're not accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to fight back is to continue to educate and reach as many people as possible, and find vehicles for all of the trusted advisors that are in our little world, to get them exposed to the much larger world. I can't remember, I think it was Mary Duke, if that name rings a bell.
Yeah, I believe so.
And Mary, this is on another call, was talking about the beginning phrases of a trust. This is a gift of love.
Mm-hmm.
She was trying to get her. Now, she's a T&E attorney who has left that practice and gone into family business advising, okay? And she handles some fairly prominent people. For her own estate, she wanted that phrase included at the beginning of her trust. And her T&E attorneys fought back.
Oh, wow. She's like, I shall fire you then. Yeah.
I mean, we were stunned.
Yeah.
But it really represents the average. Now, we didn't get into what their reasoning was. I would imagine they felt that it weakened
Mm-hmm.
terms of the trust. Okay. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
At any rate, I think we're in a unique part of the world, and it's going to take a lot to make it mainstream. And it's going to take a lot of voices. So we're just, a couple of voices, screaming out over a big ocean right now. But, no one's going to stop us from screaming.
Yeah, amen. And you're doing such a great work with how you're amplifying those voices and making them accessible, so that it's not just an echo chamber of us all in our little kumbaya world, right?
I hope so. That's the whole idea of the library. Yeah. So, moving forward, your vision of Guided by Love governed by law. I'm assuming, and I really shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming that you didn't start out that way. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I started out in a traditional law firm that's specialized in estate planning, and in that law firm, I there I wasn't I was given a platform to build my practice, but not a lot of guidance on what that would look like. And I was there for a couple of years and just felt this passion for wanting to provide a certain level of service and have conversations with clients that I didn't feel would be possible in the trajectory that this firm was going, with really doing an emphasis on document, kind of churning out documents and doing high volume estate planning rather than, you know, intimate family based estate planning. So I chose to, it took about a year of me just feeling really uneasy about things. It took, it was like the bravest thing I ever did was to go into that office and say, thank you so much for everything you've taught me and given me. And I feel like I need to go. And I remember I knew I couldn't start a firm, you know, guided by love, governed by law, if I had bad feelings with my former firm. And I had to make sure that we left on good terms and that they felt the gratitude that I had for everything that I had learned there. And so but honestly, he could have been, they still practice down the street. like they're just, but he graciously, I felt like I was given the words and the approach to be able to talk with him in a way where he gave me just a wonderful transition package to transitioning onto my own. And of course, he kind of laughed because he's like, you have no idea how hard it is to run your own law firm. You have no idea. And he just kind of was like chuckling, like, you shall be back. But,
Did you ever see the play Hamilton?
yes, yeah.
And King George says,
Yeah,
"You'll be
you'll be
back."
back. Time will tell. Yeah, no, seriously, that's, you know, not an untrue. That's why we all resonate with Hamilton, right? Because like there's pieces of our lives in the play. But anyway, so yeah, we left on good terms. I still work with some of the attorneys there when I have certain cases that they specialize in. I have one in particular attorney that is actually in my estate plan. She's the distribution trustee for my children, because we just adore each other. And so it's been a good thing. But yes, I didn't start out that way. It's definitely was something that came to me over as I watched my clients, watched their families, watched the things they were struggling with, and also watching the intersection of their assets, their family relationships, and their documents. And the reading and studying that I did, seeing just how and legacy, you know, capturing legacy impacts documents, which impacts how family relationships interpret the documents, and how it avoids conflict, and how and just seeing all of that come together. I don't just made it very, very clear that I needed to reorient the foundation of my personal practice. So
Yeah. what I, if it's okay with you, and I want to be careful here too. But the method of practice in that firm, is there a way to describe it or to dig deeper into the idea of high volume? That you're okay talking about, because I feel that it's important to be able to get a contrast between what is honestly the standard kind of practice for T&E
Mhm.
versus what you transitioned to.
This is a really great question, because even just last night, I had a financial planner reach out to me, and he belongs to a network, and he really want to work with me, and he keeps trying to push me, saying, if we say that they're just low income and they just need a will, how much would you charge to just draft a will? Or if they're, just all of these things. Like, he keeps trying to push me on becoming a document drafter instead of a counselor, instead of an advisor. Um, and he, as a financial planner, wants to do the design and then tell me what to do.
Sure.
And which is a model that I feel really uneasy about, because not just in this situation, but also because I see so many platforms out in the world that are do your own will, do your own trust, that are financial planners that are the ones saying this is what you need, and we can do it for cheap. And it all comes down to they remove all of the family, all of the love, all of the relationships, all of the impact, and they just make it about money and about cost. And I have done estate planning for people who don't even qualify for a probate. Like they're I've done trusts for people who don't even, because they're really concerned about family relationships. They're really concerned about they just have these really specific concerns that they want to make sure things are as easy as possible. They have concerns with relationships with their children. Some are strong, some are not. And so I've just seen that the piece that comes into people's lives you can't put a price tag on that. But when you boil it down just to money, people don't, when they don't have the perspective of a holistic, perspective of the big picture, they discount really important issues of things that have happened in the past, or things that health wise or relationship wise. And if it's not taken into consideration, you get a really tragic set of documents that that become a mess upon implementation. So this particular, like a common situation would be, like the on-demand platforms that you can go on and you can just click a few buttons and then, have documents spit out. There's platforms that are attached to nationwide financial planning firms that they offer a estate planning element. And so then the estate plan, the financial planner gets a kickback if they refer the estate planner and they use their platform, or things like that. So there's this this push to get everyone to use, a certain platform, or have people come in from any part of the nation to one central location and to have their documents done in frankly like a 45-minute less conversation, You scrawl out a few things on a legal pad and you take down their health care and their power of attorney agents and who do you want to be in charge, and it's divide and dump, and then you're done, so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, there's no question that everything gets lost if all you're talking about is saving taxes and protecting the money. It just, which gets to where Jay is going, I think, in their next book. Can the beneficiary live within the plan? Amen. That's what you're talking about. And if it's just a transaction where you're shuffling money around and guided by tax law, then the odds are the beneficiary is going to view the trust, as Jay says, as a curse and not as a blessing.
Yeah.
It certainly is not life enhancing.
Yeah.
So it for you was really just a gradual shifting from being exposed to a process that, from the standpoint of the firm, worked very well. But as you're looking at impact on the client, you're getting, I'll call it an itchy twitchy in the middle of your back that is really hard to scratch, stay in the same spot.
Yeah.
That sounds like what happened versus, some big bolt from the sky coming down and all of a sudden enlightenment occurs.
Well, and I think you have to, I think it has to come that way. You have to be exposed to the law. You have to be exposed to the status quo. You have to be exposed to, in order to be able to build on it and to want to grow in a more purposeful way. I think it's interesting. And I have several law students and interns that work with me right now. I have a law professor that was my client and wants to work with me. And so they've been kind of, I guess, reverse exposed. They thought that estate planning was this very morbid, like not fun subject that but then having been exposed to my perspective and the breadth and the depth and the passion and the love that's involved in the process of planning with me, it's just a profoundly satisfying area of the law that they want to practice in, because they're coming from a traditional standpoint, not having worked in the field yet, but just from the outside looking in. And then, seeing the way I work with my clients, seeing the documents that I have that are unique to my firm, seeing my process and the even just down to the clauses that I have that I can insert into the documents, and the ways, I've worked with Jim Grubman and the financial skills elements and incorporating those into the trust for some of my clients where that makes sense. It just truly feels like the ultimate process of creation. That it's not, I do not feel this grinding document drafting, I'm stuck in a corner.
I've drafted, I'm shaking my head.
Yeah.
Because when it's just a job and you've got to crank it out. Yeah. And you're more worried about just making sure the phraseology fits tax law. If it's that part of the section that there's no fun in that at all.
Yeah, it really, yeah, and that's how it kind of felt, you know. But when you catch a vision of this document as a living, breathing expression of love and gratitude and hope for the future, like I'll be in a document, and I always know. I used to be a teacher, and I was told that you always know you're ready to teach your class when you get excited, you know, when you're excited about it. And, you know, because you go, as you're preparing, you go through like the stage of like dread and like blah, blah, you know, and then you're like, okay, I'm excited. That's how I feel. I get that feeling with my clients' documents. Of course, I have, you know, an assistant that preloads their names, you know, and types
Yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like, and I'm not saying that's fun. But taking it to a place, and then you just feel this sense of creation that just wells up, and it really is akin to when I love watercolor, I love painting, and I get into this flow, you know, when you're painting, when I'm doing my art, and I can only compare it to that. Or I've thrown pots, you know, like pottery, and that feeling of seeing something form that's beautiful and that is going to touch lives. And that is, I remember when I was like, this is like pottery, like this is like painting. When my brain switches into that when I'm drafting. So like I love. I have a kind of a 4-step process for drafting too, where I'll take the document and I'll implement the discussion that we've had during the design meetings. And then I have a virtual document review. So, you know, we get on Zoom, we share screens, and we talk through, and I have comments to the side where I'm talking to them and asking questions, because things won't feel right. Something will always feel not right.
Sure.
It's just, you know, nothing's ever perfect the first time. It's kind of like, you know, you've got a sculpture there. And I love talking with them. Or I just like this one couple, they debated for, I think we talked about it for about 30 minutes, on whether or not to put a prenuptial provision in their, you know, lifetime asset protection trusts. They, you know, if they should have a prenup for the children. And I have hard prenup language and I have soft prenup language. So one's like suggestive and like educational, you know, and the other one is like, this trust is
You got to do
extinguished if
this,
you don't get a
otherwise.
prenup. Yeah. And and in that, finally I said, I'll put both of them in, and then we'll take a look at it, and then we'll decide at your virtual document review, we'll take a look at it again. And we looked at it, and it was so sensitive because the husband was the beneficiary of a significant trust, and he felt like if he would have had to make his wife sign a prenup before they got married, then that wouldn't have been, he just felt really uneasy about it. He didn't like it. But the wife, who wasn't the beneficiary, but she was like, oh, over my dead body, are they not going to have a prenup? Because I have seen like all of these things. And so anyway, what we ended up doing is they chose the harder language, but we put in a text box that was italicized, so it was stood out from the rest of the document. And it said, we love all of our grandchildren, and we will love whoever they choose to marry. But it is our responsibility to ensure that the assets from this trust will go to benefit them. And so after much discussion and much debate, we have, you know, we feel strongly that we, you know, have this provision in here, and we hope that it will be not just a safety measure for our grandchild, but also for their spouse in the case of unforeseen life circumstances. And, you know, so it was this act of like, you know what, this is nothing against you, don't even know who you are, but I'm sure we're going to love you. But, you know, hopefully this will be, you know, a blessing to both of you, and that will, and we also had a line in there that it will trigger conversations about money that might otherwise have been avoided. And
That's the big, big, big result
yeah,
right
yeah.
there. Because nice people never talk about money.
Yeah, especially when you're in love, Dennis. If you're in love, then everything will be fine. And everything will,
Well, of course it will be.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
What
yeah,
what do you mean we have to talk about a divorce? Yeah. What
right.
about when we're going to get married tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's an awkward thing, and it's something that I've had, and I guess that's an example of your estate planning being guided by love. You
Yep.
know, that even this hard topic, this awkward, hard, sticky, uncomfortable topic of, prenuptial agreements, that it can be tempered with love, that it can be an expression of love, instead of causing great heartache, or causing distrust in a marriage, or front loading a marriage with an out clause, and that's how often prenups have been described.
Yeah.
Um, so so anyway, so that's
Well, then, as a matter of fact, you're really in the heart of the difficulty in planning.
Mhm.
Planning becomes a lot easier when all you're talking about is money and taxes. When you start talking about the human stuff and thinking of generations down the road, um, I've been in sessions where people have quoted Freud, and I may not be getting this exactly correct, but what makes for a flourishing human being? Love and work.
Mhm.
And what are the hurdles to that? Sex and money. Which is the most difficult of the hurdles to cross? Money, because nice people don't talk about money. And that
Mhm.
is from over 100 years ago. And we are still struggling, and it's going to get even worse because now you have more and more women who are going to either make more or have more as a result of inheritance than their spouse. And when you think of the gender roles,
Yeah.
whoa, and then tack on planning on top of that, and then within planning the discussion of prenups, I I really think the way that couple and you formulated the idea of prenups, especially if beneficiaries in succeeding generations know that it's in the document, they got to know, otherwise there's another problem.
Yeah.
But if they know, then all of a sudden they really have to talk about this nasty subject called money, and what's your relationship to it. And to hear somebody say I don't care about it, ding ding ding, that's not correct.
Yeah. Then yeah, what kind of you know what self-deception, is that what the word is that we
I think that's a perfect word, because it's an unexamined part of most people's lives.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know?
and that's honestly, I have a good friend, um, lawyer, was a judge, and had just terrible experiences, had several marriages that were just really, really terrible. So I told him, I will do a prenup for you for your wedding gift. I will do it for you for free. Um,
This is a
and
good friend.
yeah, really good friend.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And he was so grateful. Anyway, his wife refused to sign it, and they still got married. And still, but I was just like, you're bringing together two families, but you're also bringing together two families of bank accounts. And just like I'm sure you discussed how you're going to handle Christmas and New Year's and stuff like that with your two. Um, so that was something that actually has informed I have suggestive prenup language for survivors trusts that, and I explained to my clients, it's not that you can say that they can't give it away. You can't. This is a survivors trust. They get to do whatever they want with it. But in our language, I say, we unitedly wish to remind the surviving spouse of our joint wish that the assets from our marriage be used for the benefit of the surviving spouse and the children. Therefore, we remind and request, like it's all this kind of language, that there be a prenuptial agreement that's put into place should the surviving spouse remarry. It's because anyway, it's just kind of an example of it's in the document, and then it can trigger a conversation that says, you know what, I was married to this person for 30 years or 60 years, and this is something that I feel really strongly about. This is something we've discussed and we promised each other. And so that way it's not it's not
it's difficult.
a reflection of you kind of thing.
Start talking about blended families. I mean, I'm in a blended family relationship, and I've known the grandkids of my wife's side of the family since before they were born. And the oldest is 16 now. What can I do with them? Because my assets are in trust. So, and I'm fine living within the bounds of the trust, because it even though there are a lot of words there, it comes down to its best interest. So, you have an awful lot of freedom. But, what do I do with those grandkids? And I don't have an answer yet. So, and everybody gets along. And I think it's sincere. It's not an expectation of me, not being here and assets being distributed. This is all just real stuff. In a couple of instances, I'm really the only grandpa. So
yeah.
So
well, and in that situation, I mean, in that situation, I would hope that a prenuptial agreement wouldn't say that I won't spend any money. It's just that we just don't want that surviving spouse to have a claim that I have to, like, you know what I mean? We want to make sure that there's some flexibility.
No, I mean, I've provided for my wife. Should I go first? There may be some free cash laying around, and she's a very generous person. That's we're too old. This ain't gonna change.
Yeah.
It's not like we're in our 30s or 40s.
So but with that, Dennis, I mean, like you're saying, when I started Angel Advocates, I actually started it while I was at my previous law firm, but I did.
I'm not sure I want to know in a recording.
Well, no, they knew about it. I was expected to be, I was going to be kind of a different side of the firm. Like a more purposeful side of the firm. Sure. But I don't play well with others. I want to be in charge. So we had diverging views and visions of where it was going to go.
Yeah.
And so it just became time that I needed to set up. But while I was there, naming it Angel Advocates, and I just really felt that my clients had angels in their lives that they wanted to protect. So you're talking about your grandchildren, talking about charities. If you don't have children, you're talking about, those who are drawn to this kind of planning have a life that is very rich with meaning and love. Typically, you're not going to be work with somebody who's, and guarded by love and guarded,
You're not working with Donald Trump. I got it.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, if you don't operate, like, if your underlying operating system isn't one of like generosity and love, then it's probably not going to mess with me.
Yeah.
So like they have children that they want to protect. They have special needs children they need to protect. They have marriages that they want to help flourish in their children, rather than, like, they have these things. And so I want to advocate for that voice. So we're not going to, in our discussions, we're going to make sure that all the players are at the table, and how is this going to impact them? But then also, I know that my clients, and this, when you talk about the eureka moment, this is really the eureka moment. And we've alluded to this in the past when we've discussed, but I have a very vibrant sense of that my clients will, when they've passed on, they will know the impact of their estate planning. They will observe the impact of their estate planning, and that they will be grieved. It will cause actual grief, that knowing that they could have done something that would have blessed the lives of their loved ones after they were gone, and they chose not to. Or it will bring them greater joy to see, like, you know what, this is awesome. Look at my completely financially responsible children who are inspired by the trust to invest and to start businesses and to get education, and to, because I empowered them to do that, and they can feel the trust that I have for them and the love that I have for them. I really believe that we live in our deceased loved ones' presence, and so that's, the second angel that I advocate for, is the one that you'll be. And also I take my responsibility as an attorney very seriously, because I frankly feel like in my head, I'm going to one day meet my clients up in heaven, and I better be able to look them in the eye.
You don't want you don't want them throwing tomatoes at you.
No, I don't want them throwing tomatoes at me. And that's why I have a membership program. And all my clients, we meet every 3 years, even if they're not in membership, because you know what it's like, Dennis. This is an ever-changing area of the law. And if you're any kind of good professional, you're going to be continually learning, and you're going to be looking at documents going, there's a better way. Like, oh, that was fine then. I think it's time to look at it now. And also, their lives are changing. Their children are growing up. They now have grandchildren that they're concerned about, or now they've gone through their 30s, 40s, 50s, and now their estate is in a much different place than it was when they were starting out. When it was more concern about, okay, what would happen in an emergency with the kids, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then of course I hope to be an angel in their lives. I hope that I'm someone that can help them live more deeply and with greater love and greater purpose, because the terms that are in their trust, they really should be applying to the distributions they make while they're alive. This should not be any kind of surprise. Right. If you're willing to pay so much for a wedding in your trust, and so much for education in your trust, and so much for this, or that, or financial skills, there's these 8 skills that you want to see displayed in your loved ones. You should be helping them foster those skills now. And you should be, if you can, we all, maybe that $1 million life insurance policy is what's funding the trust, so you'd have money later. But if you can now, you probably should help out with a wedding. Yep. Like, it shouldn't be any surprise what's in there.
That's right. So. It brings up, what you're talking about brings up another what could be difficult circumstance. And I don't know whether you've ever had any clients in this particular arena, but trust and estates attorneys invariably have as clients founders of successful businesses.
Mhm.
Now, that founder typically, when they got started back in their 20s, 30s, or even 50s, had as one of the goals, besides this creating the successful company, one of the goals would have been providing for your family.
Mhm.
As they become more and more successful, usually the founder will equate that material success with fulfilling the goal of providing for family. In other words, it's all about the money. Many trust and estates attorneys will shy away from any discussion that leads to a conversation about succession. How are we going to keep all this going? Even though it would be, in my mind at least, some very natural outgrowth of the conversation concerning planning.
Mhm.
I mean, wouldn't this be part of the plan? But, you know, many T&E attorneys will just shy away from that, just like they'll shy away from the philanthropic question, unless it's brought up, but they
Mhm.
themselves will not bring it up. And I think that that all stems from a fear of losing the client. I don't want to upset them in any way, shape, or form. This is difficult enough. Yeah, hon, I'm on a call. Okay, babe. So I don't know if you've been in that situation or could imagine yourself as a founder, successful founder in front of you. Any ideas about how you would open up that conversation concerning succession?
So bringing up that scenario, and this isn't answering your question. There's two other things I want to bring up before we talk about succession.
Sure.
One is my experience with successful founders of businesses has been that the very personality traits that have made them successful have often borne damaging fruits to their families and their relationships.
Without question. Sure.
And I've really thought about this because I'm like, man, like we need to have successful businesses. Like we need to have,
Yep.
you know, like it's the engine of our economy. It's the entrepreneurial spirit of America, but
Yep.
it is often at the expense of the relationship with their wives, because I have
And their kids.
and their kids. Yeah.
Are not around. They're
Especially,
just not around. Yeah.
And also, and I tasted this a little bit while I was in law school. I was in law school. I had 5 kids at home, gave birth to my 6th while I was in law school. I came home. I was on the, I was on the journal. I was a senior editor for one of the journals, and
Yeah.
I was kind of famous in my law class for having, because you would have to audition, right, for the law review or the law journal that you wanted.
Yeah.
And they would give you a 3 pages and you had to edit it. And they would grade you like and sort you on how good you were. And I, by far, in a way, was the best editor in the I had caught more mistakes than like anyone else. Like, so anyway, I would come home from law school and I would edit everyone and everything everywhere. I even to the point where I would like pick up lint off the carpet because it wasn't perfect. It was just that mindset that I was in, and I was editing my children were all in piano lessons at this time, and that's like the only time I ever spent with them was like helping them with their piano lessons. And oh my goodness, it was like, that note's wrong. Okay, now let's try that one again. And I pretty much drove everyone nuts because the perfectionist, right? So I'm just saying that I get it. Like I get it. It really was a huge mental shift that I had to make because I knew I was going to single-handedly destroy every one of my relationships if I continued my work persona at home as a mother. Like, okay, so what makes me a good lawyer over here makes me a terrible mother over here. And so, so I know that that's hard, and I know that entrepreneurs and the work and their ability to lead and see vision and drive and take risks and all that kind of stuff is so important, but it's so damaging to can be so damaging if it's taken to an extent.
Right.
So this has been something that I actually say to my clients when I feel prompted to, that the very worst estate plan we can make can be the very best estate plan we can make means absolutely nothing if you guys get divorced. It'll be the absolute, like, the very opposite of our intentions.
Yeah.
Will be realized if you guys aren't good.
Yep.
If you're not good, then all this planning, none of it matters. And like, I also like to say that when it comes to funding, right? We can do all of this beautiful planning over here. If it's not funded, it doesn't matter. Right. The same way, like, if you don't have relationships and that you want to perpetuate, that you want to be around, then who cares about the estate planning? If you have to invest in something, invest in your relationships, invest in your marriage retreats, counseling. I have been a beneficiary of all of that. My husband and I are very different people, like opposites. Like we took a relationship test, and the outpouring of our Myers-Briggs, and his Myers-Briggs was like, well, if you do make it, you'll be really great, because you really will be able to see things from a completely different perspective than so before we talk about succession planning, I'm thinking about family succession planning. Are you going to can you stay united as a couple? Can you learn these communication skills that, skills are so important. It's not just love conquers all. You got to have skills too. Mm-hmm. All of these things. Can you learn that your spouse is not one of your employees and they don't take orders from you? All of these things. I've had to call out some of my clients in this situation, because one in particular was upset that his wife wasn't making sure that he had food to eat. And I said, whose responsibility is it to feed you? It was hers. No, it's not. You can get yourself a bowl of cereal. Like, her feeding you is a gift she gives you because she loves you, not because she's obligated. And not
actually said that to a guy.
I did, and he looked at me like it was because he had been
that was a meteor that just fell. Yeah.
well, it was a very eye-opening concept to him that he wasn't owed.
Nobody ever said anything like that to him in his life.
Yeah. And because of that, the first year of our engagement was
rocky.
Was rocky, yeah, because
nobody ever talked to him that way.
None of this matters if your wife is plotting to leave you. Like, why are we doing estate planning when you're only going to have half the assets after we're done with this?
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was that was interesting. But then also, the children and his perception of success with raising his children. Really, really loved the new work that has come out as far as the success and tempering that 3-generation model with the definition of family success not being the business being perpetuated for how many generations, that being the definition. Instead, it's how much entrepreneurial spirit is in the family and their ability to create wealth and generate wealth in their own talents and gifts. So that was really eye-opening as well. So anyway, those are two kind of competing things when we're talking about succession planning. Sometimes I think we emphasize succession planning when what does it all matter when our family relationships are crummy? Like, who cares?
Well, right,
Yeah.
and it happens. This whole idea of founder succession is a passion of mine, and I'm hoping that some of the people that I've talked to, who are far smarter than I am in the industry, will, develop, whether it's founder peer groups dealing with the subject of succession, whether it's an examination of the deep fears that are unconscious that lay within all founders. I'm deliberately generalizing because I really think that the vast majority of founders are cut from a particular piece of cloth. And that's just the way that it is. And if we can't reach them in some way, then whether it's the 3-gen or maybe 4-gen rule, that will stay in effect. So we're saving lives if we can reach founders and get them thinking about. I just wrote a short blog on this, whether we can use the strengths of founders and apply those strengths to, call it the concept of succession right now, but it's really all about continuity. And it's not an event, it's a journey. And it's a journey that has to be taken by everybody in the family. Have you heard of the original definition of the word wealth?
Well-being.
Yeah. So, if we can bring that concept of well-being in there, along with what Jay would call 7-generation thinking, you're not that far from it, because if you're talking about, a founder in his 70s having grandkids who are either teenagers or maybe young adults, there's 3 generations. You're not all that far away from Gen 4 with those grandkids, and with longevity, which rich people have a greater chance of achieving than poor people. That's another subject, that health inequality exists. Then all of a sudden, there are a lot of generations that you're able to see, and it doesn't take too much to think about the effect of the words in those documents applying to G5, 6, and 7. I mean, you're not that far away.
Yeah.
No, maybe 50 years ago, when life expectancy was so much shorter. So it's for me, it's a very important topic, dealing with founders and their reluctance to get involved in succession. Family Business Magazine, current issues, the entire issue is about succession. And it really was encouraging. The webinar in the past couple of weeks, Dennis Jaffe and Stacey Allred talked about their new white paper. But Jaffe started out by saying that, we spent all of our time on the rising gen because we think they need the most help. coming to the conclusion that it really is the founder or the creator of the wealth that doesn't have the tools. Yes. That's the start of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right there. Who sets the culture, the tone for the family for generations?
Yeah.
And in that article, there was one little sentence that struck me simply because of mediating experience. I would mediate litigated cases where the judge had sent the parties to mediation. And one of the things I would say is you think you have control in that courtroom, because you're the best arguer for your position. Well, the other side has probably got some pretty good arguments too. And by the way, who makes the decision? You? You're opposing? Or the judge? Do you control the judge? No. Wouldn't you rather be in control? Well, then figure out, how to work with opposing the enemy and come up with something that you're in control of. And guess what? You can apply that same concept to a founder who is avoiding succession. Let them figure, so you want them to be in control.
Right. Right.
Didn't you stay in control? And aren't you continuing to stay in? Well, why don't you take some control over this process? And that just opens a door. Eventually he's going to get very uncomfortable because he's going to have to hear out what other people's dreams are, which he's never.
Boy, is that painful for some of them? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, of course. Finding out the son wants to be a photographer.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what we've got. I could talk to you for a few more hours, but I'm sure we both have other things that we've got to do. But your feelings?
Yeah. Whatever's helpful to you, whatever you think would be, whatever fits your needs, your purposes. And
well, let's see what Jenny comes up with. They've got to transcribe this, and let's see what we've got. I'll go over it with you before anything gets published, obviously. But this has been a lot of fun.
This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate your conversation. You asked great questions, and it's fun to take time to look back on the past and look at where I am now and what I do now. And I think at the expense, I really enjoy sharing this philosophy or this perspective with the law students that work with me, with other people. I think that I get more satisfaction out of that than equally with actually serving my clients. It's just so wonderful to be able to feel like, as you say, impacting the next generation of attorneys. I came to the law very late in life. I didn't start practicing.
Come on, you're 35 years old.
No, nope, I'm not 35, but
I'm not asking. I'm merely saying.
Yeah, no,
You're holding up really well, girl. Okay.
Yeah, no, I lived an entire life before I started, my law practice. Having so many children and being boots on the ground with them. So, for me to come to this place in life, I've definitely come with a perspective that is born from that experience that perhaps younger attorneys don't yet realize the impact of the work that they do on the families that they're serving. Having been, worked with my grandmother as a caregiver, and to see her suffer her last month of life, because her healthcare agent refused to get her to get her any kind of medical attention, and refused pain medication for her. I had to help her in the morning because he refused to escalate her care at the care facility that she was at. I had to get her out of bed. Finally, we had to have a mediator that came in because I was so upset trying to get her to be able to see a doctor. And finally he relented, and she was diagnosed with a broken back. But my grandma had asked me to be her agent for 5 years. Every time I saw her, she wanted me to be her healthcare agent. And I kept saying no, because she had a family member that was closer in line to that I felt should be in that position. And now I tell my clients, you have no obligation to have anyone be any role in your plan unless you feel absolutely comfortable with it. Those kinds of experiences with my own children, with my, those kinds of the depth of experiences and stories that I'm able to bring is just really makes me passionate about what I'm doing, and the service that I can provide for my clients. So,
if you could, I was going to say figure out a kind of presentation, and I was thinking of PPI, but it's really, that effort would be wasted only because you'd be speaking to the choir. And just as I'm trying to reach out to others that aren't members of FFI or any of the other organizations, you've got something by way of a message. If you could just think about kind of presentation, where it gets delivered, there's a connection that Jay has with a guy by the name of Tim Belber, who has created courses at the American College, which is, a university that, not American University in Washington, D.C., but this is a certifying training program for the CFPs of the world and all those other financial designations. And I'm thinking that might be an easier world to crack, to get people thinking about the humans versus the numbers. I'm just talking off the top of my head right now.
Yeah.
But Klea, you've got juice, and you've got the energy to run with that. What it would be, I don't know right now, but you would be you'd be an excellent presenter for the concepts that we've been talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a message that, and it has nothing to do with promoting your practice or anything else. It's a message that needs to be exposed the way you present it, not the way I present it, the way you